Hey, I'm glad you're here. Welcome to the Mission Manhood podcast. Today my guest is Vic Verdier. He's had many adventures in his life and joins me in this episode to talk about the role of violence in the mature masculine. We also discuss culturally how attitudes have changed toward violence and many people's reluctance to embrace violence as a necessity for keeping the peace. I think you'll really enjoy the episode, and thank you so much for joining. Hello, and welcome to the Mission Manhood podcast. Today, my guest is Vic Verdier. I knew I was going to do that. Vic Verdier. Is that right?
Yes, that's perfect.
Vic Verdier. Okay. All right. So, Vic, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so with a French name comes a French accent, and with a French accent comes a Frenchman who was born in Paris 57 years ago. And I've been living in a lot of different countries, and I've been in the US now for almost 12 years. I have a lot of different jobs, and there are jobs and also passions. One of them is to teach fitness, to coach men who are in their 40s and 50s. And another passion of mine is to teach combatives, to teach self-defense, not only to men, but pretty much to anyone, because I think anyone needs that.
So you came to the United States about 12 years ago?
Yes.
Okay.
Before that, I was in Thailand. I was teaching Thai boxing, Muay Thai in Thailand for many years. Before that, I was traveling a lot, teaching cave diving. So a lot of scuba diving in nice and sometimes not so nice places.
Cave diving combines two of my greatest fears, is closed spaces and the water. I can't believe you can actually do that.
Yeah, for a living. Yeah.
Wow.
Every single day. That was a very interesting part of my life because cave diving is dangerous. It's actually the most dangerous aspect of scuba diving. But it also helps you to be calm under pressure, to deal with stress, your stress, but also your students' stress. It helps you to be in control at any point because it's easy to panic and do something stupid and something that can cost your life eventually. So I think it's a great training, great school. It helps you to be really stoic and calm. And
just looking at your Instagram page, I can tell that you are a very calm person, and I'm assuming calm under pressure, and you teach people how to defend themselves in dangerous situations. And I'm just getting into the warrior archetype. You had a post that was all about being violent by choice and being a good protector. And you need that in order to protect your family and protect the lives of other innocent people. And I think that's an aspect of the warrior that might be misunderstood sometimes. And what I see a lot of is people working on sculpting their bodies or learning how to be really good with firearms, which I think both of those are great things too. But just the really practical things you were talking about, it just struck me that I never really hear people talking about that very much.
Okay. Yes, I see a difference, and it's a very subjective difference, but I see a difference between the warrior and the fighter. A fighter is someone who is looking for a fight. In other words, he's a bit of a jerk, and he's aggressive, and he's trying to be dominant in a very social way.
Yeah, what we might think about is like the bully.
Yeah, if you want, yeah, a bully when it comes to kids, but even for adults, there's some forms of bullying, some forms of showing who's the alpha in a social situation. Okay, and for me that's a fighter, and it has nothing to do with sport fighting or an MMA fighter or anything like that. It's more the social jerk, if you want, who is looking for a fight. And I obviously don't think that's the right approach to any kind of conflict. I think the warrior, in my mind, the warrior is something very, or someone very different, because he goes to war not because he wants to, but because he has to. The warrior goes to war because he has to defend his country, maybe, or defend his family, or maybe defend himself. Okay, and all those things are some kind of war at different scales, but it's still a war. It's still a conflict that you have to resolve, a conflict that you were not necessarily looking for, but the situation is here and you have to deal with it.
Yeah. Some of them you were trained for or prepared for in some way, like going to war for your country. You went through some training. But the one that you didn't really look for, you're at the cafe with your family and it presents itself. How do you
Yes, yes.
prepare for that?
I think you can prepare for all those situations. I'm not sure that a soldier, I mean, I was in the French Navy for 10 years and I was training people. Okay. I was training people for war, for conflict in a lot of different aspects, from firearms to hand-to-hand combat and so on. But you're never really fully prepared for that. You learn some skills and hopefully those skills will come back even under pressure, because they've been rehearsed and repeated over and over again. But you're never really prepared for that. And I think it's the same thing when it comes to self-defense in the street. For example, you are at the gas station, the water hole, and one or two or three bad guys are more interested in your wallet and your car than in having a conversation with you. And even if you learn some martial arts, even if you have some skills, you're never really prepared for that.
Yeah.
That's for me what the warrior is all about. Someone will really be able to use some of the skills, someone who will be able to improvise, someone who will be able to stay calm under pressure and not trying to escalate a possible conflict.
Would you say avoid it when you can?
Yes, avoid it as much as you can, yes.
As much as you can.
Yes. The reason being, it's not about ego. Very often, and that's again the difference between the fighter and the warrior. For the fighter, it's all about the ego. It's all about showing, proving to others that you have skills, you're good, you're a badass, and you can teach someone a lesson. Unfortunately, when it comes to real violence in the street, you never know what can happen. You never know who you will have to deal with. You never know what their level of practice, how violent they are, how far they are ready to go. You never know if they have a weapon. You never know if they have a friend or several friends who are ready to jump in. In other words, you think you can teach a lesson to someone and it turns ugly. Okay? That's why if you can avoid at all costs. It's not a fair fight.
Yeah, because there are too many unknown variables.
Yes.
Just today or recently, you posted about Vlad the Impaler.
And yes, that was today, yes.
You said that he's an example of a psychopath or a mass murderer who is put in a position of power. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was interesting because in the book, King, Warrior, Magician, and Lover, they talk about the sadistic nature of that warrior energy that's combined with the ego. That the most extreme example you could probably come across, somebody who's totally given over to that.
Yeah.
And then the opposite side of that, somebody with like no warrior energy, the book says that he's a cowardly masochist. He can't act decisively, and he lacks the capacity to endure the pain necessary for the accomplishment of any worthwhile goal. I just thought that was interesting to paint a picture of those two extremes. Mm-hmm. And then perhaps you can give us your idea of what it means to be a protector, a warrior, and not a fighter. Mm-hmm. How do you teach people?
I would say the way I teach self-defense, and I don't like to call that self-defense because I don't like the word defense by itself. Defense is something very passive, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Okay. And therefore, it's not necessarily the best option. Sometimes, as we say, avoiding, diffusing, escaping is the best option. Sometimes attacking is the best option. Okay, every situation is different, and therefore I don't like the term self-defense. However, when I teach that to my students, and as I said before, they could be men, women, young and old, very fitness-oriented or not at all. They might have some experience in sport fighting or martial arts, or they might have no experience whatsoever. Strangely enough, everybody is pretty much the same when it comes to facing violence, facing real violence. No one is really prepared for that. Okay, so one of the tools I use extensively is to put people in scenarios. We set up scenarios that try to mimic as much as possible real life situations. Okay. Like being mugged in the street when taking some cash at the ATM. Mm-hmm. And we try to put people in those situations with as little preparation as possible. Because the most important thing when it comes to defend yourself, because when it comes to being a warrior, is in your head. It's between your ears. It's not all the fancy skills you learn. It's your willingness to use those skills. And that makes the difference between someone who will end up badly injured and someone who will be able to stay alive, stay well, and go back home to see their family at the end of the day.
Yeah. And such a quick response. You only have a fraction of a second to decide how you're going to act or react.
Exactly. So that's why everybody, I don't know if you heard about the Huda Loop. That's OODA. And that was a concept an Air Force colonel named John Boyd came up with a few decades ago. And it's the way your brain works under pressure when you have to make quick decisions. In a nutshell, the first thing you do is to observe. That's the first O. You observe the situation and you see what's happening. Okay, and that takes a second, sometimes not even a second. The second O is orient, meaning you try to compare the ongoing situation to something you already experienced in the past. And if you never experienced anything like that in the past, you're pretty much stuck in this step of the process. You just don't know what to do. You freeze, in other words. The next step, the D, is decide. So you decide based on your experience what you want to do. And the final A stands for act. And that's when you actually do what you decided to do. And the more experience someone has, even if that experience is a simulation, a scenario, the faster people will be able to go to the next step and decide what to do. That's why we try to simulate real life as much as possible and put people in a lot of different situations to help them process the situation and decide what to do instead of freezing completely.
Yeah, because they've practiced it even.
They experienced something similar in the past.
Something similar. You said that you don't like the word defense or self-defense. And that's another thing I read was the samurai advice was to leap into battle. They were on the offensive, aggressive, and that energy is vital. That would be more in keeping with a survival mentality. They know what to do and they take decisive action, like you were saying.
Yeah, and I mean, everybody has a survival instinct, but we have all different ways to express this instinct. Okay, we all know about the fight and flight reaction. Some people will decide to fight, some people will decide to run away, but some people will not even decide. It will happen, they will freeze, okay,
Yeah.
and they will do pretty much nothing. Okay, and when you do nothing in front of someone who already decided to do bad things to you, nothing good comes out of the situation here.
Yeah, you had a really good video that kind of summarized some of this stuff, and it's really what caught my attention as far as why I wanted to talk to you about this subject.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought we could just kind of go down those points because I thought you summarized it really well.
Okay.
And the first thing you addressed was being violent by nature or by choice.
Yes, we come back to this idea of a warrior. You don't want to be violent as a way of life. Okay, you want to be violent when you need to use violence as a tool. In other words, in my opinion, a man, okay, a balanced man, should be able to be calm, okay, loving, caring, taking care of his family, taking care of his friends, but also be able to be violent if they need to. Why would they need to be violent? To protect those people or to protect his own life, or sometimes also to protect his values and what he believes in.
Yeah.
And I think it's a balance. You need to be strong, okay, and you need to be calm, and you need to be violent if you need to, and you need to be loving. And it's you find the four archetypes you were talking about. That's what a balanced person is, in my opinion.
Yeah. You listed some attributes of a protector.
There's so many attributes, but I think what is important is to understand that I think many people are talking about peace because they have no other option. Okay. In other words, we should talk about peace when we also are able to make war. You probably know a writer named Jack Donovan, who's talking about the four tactical virtues of courage, honor, strength, and mastery. Okay? And you find those four virtues in the warrior, because the warrior cannot be weak. He has to be strong. It doesn't mean he uses his strength all the time, but he has this ability to be strong, to be courageous, to be honorable, and to master skills. And in this case, the skills of violence.
You have these aren't characteristics, but to prevent, avoid, diffuse, and de-escalate in a life-threatening situation.
Yes.
Is that part of
So
that initial assessment that you do when you're trying to decide?
the sooner you see a situation coming, the better. Okay. Everybody talks about situational awareness, meaning paying attention to what's happening around you. It's very easy to be sucked in your phone when you walk in the street and you don't see anything coming. But if you pay attention to what's happening around you, you might have this this weird gut feeling, this spider sense telling you that something is wrong. You don't know what exactly, but something is wrong, and therefore you might be able to avoid the situation in the first place. If you have your head buried in your phone and walk in the street, you don't see the two dodgy guys in the middle of the sidewalk looking at you, the strange look in their face. Okay, but if you see them from a distance, you might simply decide to turn around or cross the street, or go in one of the shops nearby. So avoiding the situation is probably the best option. Running away could be an option as well, because as we said, there's no fair fight. Being able to talk your way out of a situation is sometimes possible. Not always, but sometimes possible. Especially if it's a kind of a social confrontation, meaning someone in a, let's say, a bar who wants to show their friend that he's a big boss. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and there's nothing wrong apologizing and say, "Oh, well, I'm sorry, I pushed you, I bumped into you. My apologies." Okay, there's nothing wrong with doing that. So sometimes it's possible to de-escalate. Sometimes it's not. I mean, that's 3, 4 steps that should be the
Before you,
first reaction if we can. Yes.
yeah. Well, and then you get into the tool of violence, and when you commit to that, you need to be fully committed.
Yes. You can't use it halfway. You can't half-ass a fight.
So once you decide that it's escalated to that point, you just have to be fully committed. And you said try to make it as short as possible.
Yes, because the longer a fight, the longer you fight someone, the more chance of being injured. Okay. You or the people who are with you, because sometimes you're just with your family, your kids, and so on. If you decide that, okay, it's game on, you have to do something, you have to be committed to that. And the situation ends up quickly, rather than trying to fight but without really fighting, and then all of a sudden there's a knife coming up, or all of a sudden there's two partners running towards you, and so on. In my opinion, if you decide to use violence as a tool to fix the situation, use it, and use it to its most extreme form.
Later, you said that violence is just part of our human nature, just part of our DNA, perhaps.
I mean, yeah, I don't know if it's in the DNA, but it's definitely something that we used. I mean, many times since the dawn of age. Violence has been the solution to fix many problems. The history of mankind is full of wars and conflicts and fights and duels and murders, and so yeah, violence is part of what we do, and we are really good at it. It's not necessarily the best tool for every situation, but it's a tool we used extensively.
Yeah. You had a post about the Brad Pitt character, Tyler Durden, in Fight Club.
Yes.
And you said of him, he never steps away from pain or any new experience, and how that whole movie and maybe his character too have become kind of like the cult classic. What is the appeal there, do you think?
I think there's many appeals to this character. It's probably one of Brad Pitt's most famous movies somehow, and I think many people, many young men, identify themselves with this character. And I don't think it's because of the fight itself. I think it's more because of the kind of rejection of society how it is. Okay, consumerism and kind of a social contract that doesn't really resonate for them. But yes, the fight aspect of the Fight Club is definitely one of the things that people remember about this movie. It takes a lot of courage to all the characters in the movie to decide to fight for no reason except that you have to fight on your first evening at the Fight Club. And I think it's one of the things that makes the Fight Club so successful among the practitioners. It's the fact that they have to go out of their comfort zone, and even if they don't have any experience in fighting, they have to fight on the first night.
Yeah, so they're just kind of, they jump into the deep end right away.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. One of the reasons that I'm in this space, just encouraging masculinity is because as a mental health therapist, I saw a lot of men, especially younger men in their 20s and 30s, almost apologetic for their masculinity and wanting to defend. And so I think, people like you who are promoting a really well balanced, mature masculinity is such a great thing for people who are seeking to find really good examples of that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The warrior is one of the basic building blocks of the masculine psychology, but it's one of the things that people seem to be most uncomfortable with. They want peace, but it's kind of been to squelch that side when in reality you can never have peace if you don't have a healthy masculinity that's prepared to defend.
Completely agree with that. The old Latin si vis pacem para bellum. If you want to have peace, you need to prepare war. And again, it's easy to promote peace, but it's not easy to maintain peace if you're not strong enough and ready to fight for it. So in the modern world, we don't personally use violence on a regular basis. In other words, we subcontract violence to the police, the soldiers, and anyone who will be able to enforce laws, order, regulation, and so on. In other words, we tend to have a very remote relationship with violence, and somehow the well-balanced man who we are talking about lack this aspect in his life. Everybody understands that to be a king, you have to be a leader. Everybody understands that to be a lover, you have to be caring, and you have to have people to care about. Everybody understands that the magician is more about knowledge, about creativity, but the warrior aspect of the four archetypes is something we are uncomfortable with, simply because we have this distant and remote relationship with violence. We tend to associate violence with the usual toxic masculinity. If you're violent, that's because you're a jerk. It's because you're full of testosterone. It's because you can't control yourself. I don't agree with that. You have to be violent sometimes to fix a situation. It's not necessarily the tool you want to use every day for everything. That would be stupid. But it's a tool, like any other tool. You need to be able to use it when it's appropriate.
Agree. It's an interesting point you made about our kind of remote relationship with violence, even to the extent of our food sources. When my grandmother or grandfather wanted to eat chicken for dinner, they would go outside and wring the neck of a chicken. And that's violent. They had a different relationship with the world in which they lived. Another thing is just culturally how lately people are standing up against even the remote. We considered it to be okay for police to be violent, but now, we're defunding aspects of that as well.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. When I was in the Navy, I spent many years in Africa, in different countries in Africa, and they have a very different relationship with violence. Violence is more on a day-to-day basis. They use violence to solve some personal conflict, and by being more used to that, they actually manage sometimes to resolve conflicts much more efficiently and much faster than what we do. And I'm convinced that we don't want to have the responsibility of using violence for a lot of different reasons, a legal reason. But I think being able to accept responsibilities sometimes we lack the courage to say no. Okay, we need borders. Okay, we need borders in countries. We need borders in a lot of aspects of our life, and we need to be able to say, "Oh no, you went too far." And it's something that many people tend to, or more often, have a problem with nowadays. Being able to say, "No, you cross the border, you cross the line, and I'm ready to defend my values or defend my life or defend my property, even using violence if need be."
if necessary.
Yeah, if necessary.
You brought up an interesting point about fighting too, or that culture where they use that to settle disputes. And I know probably with my dad's generation and maybe even the decade after that, the principal used to tell the boys, take it off the school property. So you were allowed to fight, but just take it off the property. And now you're shamed for fighting, regardless of where you fight. It's just such a different way of viewing it. It used to be accepted that boys were just going to have to knock each other around a little bit to get to the bottom of it. We've just changed so much culturally, I guess, is the point.
Yeah, I think so. At least in the Western world, yes. I think it's less like that in Asia or in Africa, or at least in the countries I spend time in, where kids are more free to settle their disputes the hard way.
Yeah.
We try to protect our kids so much that somehow it's a disservice that we do to them. Sometimes kids need to settle their problems the way they are supposed to. I think there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
It's part of our training for real life when we grow up. At least we have a bit of experience as a kid before entering the real world.
Yeah. I think that in this space too, there are men at all different parts of the journey, at different places on the path, so to speak. And somebody who's just starting off, all the way to somebody who's been practicing for a really long time. And I wondered what you would say maybe to those different guys, maybe a father who has children, or to a young man that's just deciding that he wants to move on in the direction of mature masculinity. How do you, in this modern day where we've sort of sanitized, what's a good way to start to practice, to start to implement this?
You mean when it comes to
Like the
defending yourself,
defending
or
yourself and violence. And I mean, is it through like martial arts or getting like a mentor like yourself to learn?
as I was mentioning at the beginning, there's the skill component, meaning, yeah, a punch is something you need to learn to do to be as efficient as possible. A kick is something you can improvise, but there's a better way probably to do it. Okay, so there's the skill component. And that can be learned through martial arts, that can be learned through sport fighting, MMA, and so on, grappling. And there's the mental component. And the mental component is usually not something that is learned in a dojo, because everything is codified. You have to follow some rules because no one wants to be badly injured when they practice. You have rules, you have referees, you have weight class, you have belts. So there's a real code that has been put in place to make sure that everything happens according to the code. It's nice, but it's not realistic. It's not what happens in real life. So this mental component, most of the time, except for a few places, most of the time the mental component cannot be learned in a school. Okay, cannot be learned in a dojo, cannot be learned doing martial arts. It will be learned in a very reality-based course, okay, self-defense course. It might be learned through experience, so real-life experience, being able, when you're a kid, to have a fight if you need to have a fight, okay? Because I think that it creates an experience that you cannot find anywhere else. It doesn't mean that you have to fight everybody for any reason. And that's the fighter we were talking about at the beginning. Okay, you don't want to be a jerk, but you want to be able to defend your opinion, defend your life, defend whatever you need to defend. And that only happens when your mind is ready to do it. There's many examples of experienced martial artists getting badly hurt and beaten to a pulp in the street, simply because even if they have the skills, they didn't have the willingness to defend themselves because they were not prepared for that.
I appreciate you coming and sharing all of this with me today.
Oh, you're more than welcome. I appreciate you inviting me.
One thing I wanted to ask you about before you get away is you told me you were on a motorcycle trip.
Yes.
How fun is that?
It was fun till yesterday. Since yesterday, it's raining really bad.
And when it rains, do you just keep going?
Yes, yeah.
Through the rain.
Yeah, because I have some set dates for courses I teach, so I cannot spend 2 or 3 days somewhere and so on. There's been a lot of rains in Louisiana yesterday. There's some towns that are completely flooded. So yes, Louisiana. I was in Louisiana yesterday. I'm in Mississippi today. I should be in Alabama tomorrow.
It was a lot of fun until the rain started, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, before we sign off, can you let people know if they want to contact you? What's the best way to do that?
My website is vicverdiercoaching.com. I also have I'm also on Instagram and Facebook, same thing, Vic Verdier Coaching. And I have a YouTube channel, vicverdiercoaching.com.
That's easy.
That's easy.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Angela.